In old movies, when a character needed to go to somebody's office, what they would do is first show a shot of the building, show a shot of the character arriving at the building, and show a shot of the character walking through the office space and arriving at the person's office. And you don't see that in modern movies now anymore. The modern audience is reasonably expected to know that they are in an office building and this is a person's office by just showing the shot of a character sitting in an office. It's one of those things that were phased out as we learned how storytelling works. I have had a weird career in writing. One thing I've done is consulted on books before. Nothing successful. I'm not a secret ghostwriter who's written your favorite novels. I've just helped a, a lot of people out with their writing. And one of the things I notice, I'm also a professional writer that is paid money to do this. One of the things I notice in a lot of writing are scenes very much like the example I gave. Pointless filler scenes that explain stuff that the audience is reasonably assured that they should know. To give a fake example so I don't embarrass anybody, let's say we're at a restaurant and there's a fairly intense scene between two characters. A lot of secrets revealed, a lot of drama, but at the end of the scene, we spend an equal amount of time with them debating how they're going to split the check and what credit card they're going to use. Now, why do we need to see that? Well, I know it's not realistic for them to just leave the restaurant, but we can, as an audience, reasonably assume that people know that they paid for their food. The line between this, a story with a lot of pointless details, and a story with a lot of verisimilitude, is unfortunately quite a blurry one. And I honestly don't know what type of story you're writing. How could I? I've never read it. A lot of people really want their stories to be realistic, and I don't see anything wrong with this, but I think when people say they want it to be realistic, what they really want is their story to have verisimilitude. I really like that word, verisimilitude. It feels strong. And to me, that means it feels real. The situations you're displaying in your book, show, movie, game, comic book, elaborate theater piece, amusement park feel realistic because they are well thought out and empathetic looks at everyday foibles that humans will go through. But they don't get bogged down in really extraneous, boring details. This is going to be mean, but this is the best way to explain it, I think. We all have older relatives, and especially when you're a young person, you've had this experience of an older relative coming up to you and telling you a long winded story about a subject you have no understanding, and they get lost in describing things like, oh, the building, or we were wearing onions on our belts. It was the fashion of the time. And it's impossible to follow, boring, and you just kind of silently nod along. Can I ask, are you sure you're not writing that version of the story? Are there details like that that are impossible to follow, long, boring, and maybe they would just be better cut out? A good way to get good writing, it's not the only way, is to put as little obstacles between you and the story you're trying to tell and the reader reading it. Try and find what the central idea of your story is and get to that as quickly as possible. Of course, that's not the only way to do it, and I'm sure all you very smart, intelligent literary folks could name me 1,000 books, 1,000 movies, 1,000 TV shows and games that really luxuriated in the details and nailed it. And you would be right. You would be very right. Art is not a one-stop destination. There are many roads to get to the same location. I'm just trying to give you advice on how to drive down a nice, easy, well-paved one. By the way, I'm aware I'm opening myself up to a pretty big self-own, but I do have a Kindle single coming out on May the 4th called Jack and Alex versus the Space Mafia. Give it a look.